My wife texted, I'm keeping our friends in the divorce. 3 weeks later, I had them all back. Not because I campaigned for them, because she showed them who she was and they chose who they wanted to stand next to, and the standing was done quietly, without announcement, one brunch cancellation at a time. My wife Claire and I separated after 6 years. The reasons are the standard reasons, which are never standard when you're inside them, but which reduce to standard when you describe them to someone outside. The divorce was civilized until the text. Claire sent it on a Thursday at 3:17 p.m. It said, I'm keeping our friends. Don't make this awkward. Keeping our friends. As though the friends were assets listed on a property division sheet between the car and the espresso machine. Our friend group is 8 people, 4 couples who had become 2 couples and 4 individuals after various breakups, which means the group has survived its own dissolutions and should theoretically be equipped to survive ours, except that Claire had decided the survival would be unilateral. I didn't respond to the text. I didn't call the friends. I did nothing, not strategically. I did nothing because I was sitting in a new apartment eating cereal from a bowl I had bought at Target that morning, and the bowl was the wrong size and the cereal was the wrong brand, and the wrongness of everything in my immediate environment was consuming enough bandwidth that the social politics of friend custody required energy I did not have. Claire acted fast. She called each friend individually within 24 hours. She told them her side. I know because Malcolm, one of the 8, told me later. He said, she called me at 8 p.m. Thursday. She gave me the narrative. I said, what was the narrative? He said, that you were emotionally unavailable, that you prioritized work over the marriage, that she tried everything and you didn't meet her halfway. I said, is that true? He said, parts of it. But she also said you didn't fight for the marriage. And I was at your house in January when you asked her to go to therapy, and she said, therapy is for people who can't fix things themselves. I heard that conversation. She didn't mention it in the narrative. The narrative was curated. For Malcolm, she emphasized my emotional unavailability because Malcolm values emotional intelligence. For Pilar, she emphasized my work schedule because Pilar's ex-husband was a workaholic, and the parallel would resonate. For each friend, she identified the frequency that would produce alignment. The broadcasting was effective because 7 of 8 friends initially aligned with Claire. 7 of 8, 1 holdout. A woman named Diana who said to Claire, I love you both. I'm not picking a side. Claire's response to Diana, if you're not picking a side, you're picking his. The binary. The conversion of neutrality into betrayal. I did nothing for 3 weeks. I ate cereal in the wrong bowl. I went to work. I came home. I didn't call anyone. I didn't present a counter narrative. Here's what the short version doesn't tell you. The 3 weeks of silence weren't noble. They weren't a strategy. They were me, in a 1-bedroom apartment with walls that smelled like the last tenant's cooking, learning what loneliness actually looks like when it's not the movie kind. The movie kind is rain on windows and slow music. The real kind is standing in a store for 20 minutes trying to decide how many towels one person needs. I bought 1 set of towels, 2 towels, 1 for the body, 1 for the hair, except I don't have enough hair to need a hair towel, so the second towel just sat on the rack looking like it was waiting for someone who wasn't coming. I checked my phone constantly, not to call anyone, just to check. The way you check a door you already know is locked. I told myself this was dignity, not calling, not campaigning. But at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday in week 2, eating cereal from the wrong bowl in the wrong apartment, wearing a shirt I'd worn 3 days in a row, I wasn't sure if what I was doing was dignity or if it was cowardice dressed up as dignity, because cowardice is easier to live with when you give it a better name. Then Diana texted, week 2, a Wednesday afternoon. The text said, are you eating? I typed back, define eating. She replied, I'm coming over Saturday. No question mark. Not a request, a statement. Saturday came and Diana showed up with 4 takeout containers from a noodle place we all used to go to as a group. She walked in, looked at my apartment, looked at the single towel on the rack, looked at the cereal bowl on the counter, and said nothing about any of it. We sat on the carpet and ate noodles and watched a cooking competition show on my laptop. She didn't ask about Claire. She didn't ask how I was handling things. She didn't use the voice people use when they've decided you're fragile. Then, during a commercial, she said, you know she called me again. I stopped chewing. What did she say? Diana pulled a noodle out of the container slowly. That I'm choosing you by not choosing. That neutrality is a side. I looked at the floor. Is it? Diana looked at me, sitting on my carpet surrounded by takeout containers in an apartment with 1 towel and no table. I'm sitting on your floor eating noodles, she said. Draw your own conclusion. That was Diana. She never declared anything. She just showed up and let the showing up be the declaration. A few days later, I got a text from one of the other friends. The text said, hey, just checking in. Claire mentioned some stuff. You doing okay? Some stuff. 2 words that could mean anything. Some stuff was a door I couldn't see through, and behind the door was a version of me that Claire had built. I typed, what stuff? And deleted it. I typed, she's not telling the truth, and deleted it because that sounded like defending, and defending sounds like deflecting. I finally typed, I'm okay, thanks for asking, and hit send. The message went through. The read receipt appeared. No reply came. Not that day, not the next day, not ever. The silence after that non-reply was worse than Claire's original text because the original text was Claire declaring war, and war at least has a shape. But a friend reading your message and choosing not to respond is a shape you can't hold. Then Malcolm called. It was a weeknight. I saw his name on my phone, and for 1 stupid second, I felt something like hope. I picked up, but Malcolm's voice was tight. He said, I need to tell you something and you're not going to like it. My hope died in the space between his words. Claire told Pilar that you hit her, Malcolm said. I didn't move. I didn't speak. The apartment, which had been too quiet for 2 weeks, became a different kind of quiet. I told Pilar that's not true, Malcolm continued. I've known you 11 years. You've never raised your hand at anyone. You've never even raised your voice at a waiter who got your order wrong 3 times. What did Pilar say? I asked. Pilar said she told Claire she didn't believe it, Malcolm said. Claire removed Pilar from the group chat within the hour. She kicked her out for not believing it. She kicked her out like not believing was the betrayal, not the lie. I sat on my bed after Malcolm hung up. The cereal bowl was on the counter. The wrong towel was on the rack. And now, somewhere in the world, people I had known for years had been told that I hit my wife. The weight of that was different from everything else. That was the kind of weight that changes how you stand in a room, how you look at your own hands. I picked up the phone and called Diana. She answered on the second ring like she'd been waiting. Did she tell you I hit her? I asked. No greeting, no lead-in. Diana Diana was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "She told me you grabbed her arm once during an argument." My stomach clenched. That never happened. "I know," Diana said, and her voice was calm. "I was there for most of your arguments. You don't grab, you leave the room, you walk away, you go stand in the next room, or you go sit in the car. That's actually the problem she originally complained about, that you leave instead of staying, that you shut down instead of fighting." She let that sit. I let it sit too, because there it was. The crack in Claire's story that I didn't have to point out because Diana had already found it. Claire's first narrative was that I was emotionally absent, that I left the room. Her second narrative was that I grabbed her during an argument. But you can't be the man who always leaves and also be the man who stays and grabs. The two stories canceled each other out, and the canceling wasn't something I engineered. It was something Claire built into her own lie because the lie was designed to land with each person individually, and she forgot that the people she was telling would eventually talk to each other. Pilar called 2 days later. It was the first time she'd called me directly since the separation. I answered. Pilar's voice was tight. "I need to tell you something," she said, "and I need you to just listen." So I listened. Pilar told me that Claire had called her weeks ago, early in the campaign. She said Claire had spent 45 minutes on the phone with her, and that the entire conversation had been built around one thing: Pilar's divorce from Artie. Claire had said, "You know what it's like to be married to someone who's never really there. That was my life with him." She said Claire had talked about lonely dinners and canceled plans and the feeling of being married to someone whose body was in the room but whose attention was somewhere else, and that every word Claire used was a word Pilar had used about Artie during their own divorce, and the overlap wasn't coincidence, it was design. Pilar stopped talking for a second. Then she said, "She used my divorce to sell me yours, and I bought it because it felt familiar." The honesty in that sentence hit me in a place I wasn't ready for. Claire didn't just tell people a story about me. She told each person a story about themselves and then put me in the middle of it. She turned me into Artie for Pilar. She turned me into whatever she needed me to be for each person in that group. And the versions didn't need to be consistent with each other because they only needed to be consistent with the listener's pain. Then Pilar told me the part that changed everything. She said, "When I pushed back on the hitting thing, Claire didn't get angry. She got calm." Pilar paused. Her voice was shaking now. She said, "I knew you wouldn't believe me." Artie's friends didn't believe his first wife either. I closed my eyes. Claire had compared me to Artie. Not the workaholic version, the other version. The version that made Pilar's divorce a nightmare. Claire had taken Pilar's deepest fear, the fear that she missed signs, that she didn't protect herself or myrtle soon enough, and she had turned that fear into a weapon. She weaponized the worst thing that ever happened to me, Pilar said, and her voice cracked on the word weaponized, to win a friend custody argument. That was the moment Pilar fully turned. Not because I convinced her, because Claire reached into the most painful part of Pilar's life and used it like a tool, and Pilar recognized the technique. I asked Pilar what she wanted me to do. Pilar said, "Nothing." She continued. "She told us you'd come campaigning. She said you'd call everyone and try to turn us against her. She literally predicted it. She said, he's going to call each of you and play the victim and try to make me look crazy. So when you didn't call, when you just disappeared, some of us started thinking." She let that land. Claire had prepared everyone for a campaign. She had told them I would call. She had built a framework where my calling would prove her right, and I didn't call. Not because I was smart, because I was eating cereal in the wrong bowl and couldn't find the energy to fight. But the not fighting looked like something. It looked like a man who didn't need to defend himself because the defense was already in the room, in 6 years of being a specific person in front of specific people. And the specificity was the evidence, and the evidence didn't need a lawyer. Meanwhile, Claire escalated. She created a new group chat. This one didn't include Pilar. Malcolm showed me the screenshot later. The message read, "I just want everyone to know that Pilar has chosen to support my abuser. I'm heartbroken, but not surprised. Some people care more about being neutral than being safe." I stared at the screenshot. The word abuser sat in the middle of the screen like a bruise. "She called me her abuser," I said to Malcolm. My voice sounded flat even to me. Malcolm looked at me. "She called you her abuser to 5 people who have watched you apologize to a waiter for sending back soup." I sat with all of it for a day, and then I made a decision, not to campaign. Claire had predicted that, not to counter message. I decided to call each of the remaining friends who hadn't reached out to me, and I decided to ask them one question. I called the first one. I said, "I'm not going to tell you my side. I just want to ask, in 6 years, did you ever see me be violent? Did you ever see me grab anyone, hit anyone, raise my hand at anyone? That's the only question. You don't have to answer me. Just answer it for yourself." And I hung up. I called the next one. Same words, same question, same hang up. The question wasn't really for me. It was for them. It was an invitation to compare the accusation to the evidence of their own memory, and their memory was 6 years long. 2 of them called back within 48 hours. Over the next week and a half, 5 of the 7 friends who had originally sided with Claire found their way back to me. Not in any big way. It was texts first, short ones. "Hey, you around this weekend?" And "Saw that show you used to talk about? It's actually good." The reconnection was quiet and a little awkward, like returning a borrowed book 3 months late where nobody mentions how late it is, but everybody knows. Nobody said, "I'm sorry I believed her." Not one person. They just started showing up again, the way people do when they've stepped away from someone and decided to step back, and the stepping back is the apology. But 2 friends were still in Claire's orbit. Then Claire did something I didn't see coming. 4 of the friends, Malcolm and Pilar and Diana and one of the others, organized a brunch. The kind we used to do as a group. They invited me. I said yes. We met at a restaurant downtown. I got there early. Malcolm got there next, then Diana, then Pilar, then the 4th friend. We ordered. We talked. It was almost good, almost easy. And then Claire walked in. She came through the front door like she'd been coming to this restaurant her whole life, like the universe had simply placed her here by coincidence on the same morning at the same place where her ex-husband was sitting with 4 of the friends she had tried to keep. She saw me. She didn't flinch. She smiled. She walked to the table and said, "Oh, I didn't know you'd be here. That's fine. We're all adults." And she sat down. She ordered coffee. She asked about people's kids. She complimented someone's new haircut. She laughed at the right moments. She was warm. She was funny. She was the version of Claire that made everyone fall in love with her in the first place. I watched the table's energy shift the way a room shifts when someone turns on a lamp. I looked at Malcolm. Malcolm glanced at me with an expression that said, "I see this happening and I don't know what to do about it. I looked at Pilar. Pilar's jaw was tight. Her fork held a little too hard. Her eyes on her plate. I looked at Diana. Diana caught my eye and gave the smallest head shake I've ever seen. I didn't leave. I didn't confront Claire. I ate my food. I answered questions when people asked them. I was boring and calm and present, and being boring and calm and present was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. Then Claire made her mistake. She was telling a story about a trip we all took 2 summers ago, a beach weekend. She got to the part about the sunscreen and she laughed and said, "Remember when he forgot the sunscreen and I had to take care of everyone? That's basically our marriage in miniature." She laughed. A couple people at the table laughed too, the automatic laugh. And then Pilar spoke, quietly, not loud, not angry, just clear, in a voice that sounded like she'd been waiting to say this specific sentence for a long time. "I remember that trip," Pilar said. "I remember you forgot the sunscreen. He drove 40 minutes to a store to buy some because you were upset about burning." The table went silent. Claire's smile stayed on her face, but her eyes changed. The warmth left them. "That's not how I remember it," Claire said. Pilar didn't look away. "That's been the problem," she said. The sentence landed on the table like a glass breaking. 6 words. "That's been the problem." Claire stood up. The charm cracked. The performance ended. "I can't believe you're all sitting here with him after what he did to me," she said, and her voice was loud enough that the table next to us looked over. Malcolm put down his fork. "What did he do to you, Claire?" he said. "Specifically?" The word specifically did the work. It asked for details. It asked for evidence. Claire's mouth opened and closed. "You know what he did," she said. Malcolm shook his head slowly. "I know what you said he did," he said. "I also know what I saw for 6 years. Those are different things." Claire looked around the table. She was looking for an ally. She didn't find one. Not one face. Not one nod. She picked up her bag. She looked at me. "You're going to regret this," she said. I said nothing. I didn't have to. She left. She walked through the restaurant and out the front door, and the door closed behind her, and the table was quiet for a long time. Then Diana, who had been sitting quietly through all of it, looked around the table and said, "So who's getting the check?" Someone laughed. Then someone else laughed. And the laughing was the sound of pressure releasing. 5 weeks of pressure. That evening, Claire sent the final message. She opened the group chat, the one she still controlled, the one that now contained only her and the 2 remaining friends, and she typed, "If any of you talk to him, you're dead to me. I mean it. Choose." One of the 2 friends, the one who had been silent through all of it, responded. They wrote, "I watched you lie about him hitting you. I watched you lie at brunch about the sunscreen. I'm not choosing him over you. I'm choosing not to be near someone who lies like this. Those are different things." And then they left the chat. Claire was alone in the group chat with one remaining person. One person who never responded to the ultimatum message, who just let it sit there like a text sent to a phone that nobody picks up, which is maybe the loneliest thing a message can become. Malcolm told me all of this sitting on my floor because I still didn't have a table, but the bowl on the counter was new. I'd bought it on a Tuesday, a regular Tuesday, a Tuesday when I felt capable of walking into a store and making a small decision about the correct size of a bowl for one person. I didn't celebrate when Malcolm told me. I didn't pump a fist. I just sat there and looked at my phone. 7 names, 7 people who came back. Not because I fought for them, because Claire's narrative required perfection, and perfection requires consistency, and consistency is impossible when the story you're telling contradicts the story everyone lived through together for 6 years. That night, at 11:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. "Claire," the text said, "you took everything from me." I read it. I read it again. I started typing. "I didn't take anything. You let go." I deleted it. I typed again. "I'm sorry it ended this way." I deleted it. And I put the phone down on the counter next to the correct bowl, and I went to bed because some things don't need a response. Diana called the next morning. "How are you feeling?" she asked. I thought about it. "Like someone who survived something he didn't know he was surviving until it was over," I said. Diana was quiet for a second. Then she said, "That's most of life." I smiled. The first real one in a while. "Diana," I said, "thank you for not leaving. You don't thank someone for standing still," she said. "You thank them for coming back. I never left, so you owe me nothing." She paused. "But Malcolm owes you an apology and a better brand of beer." I have 7 friends now. Not because I won anything or campaigned for them or built a better story than Claire's, because I was known. 6 years of being a specific person in specific rooms, of sending back soup and feeling bad about it, of leaving arguments instead of staying in them, of driving 40 minutes for sunscreen. All of that created evidence that no curated narrative could write over. Claire has the group chat. The group chat has 1 member. I don't feel triumph about that. I feel the particular sadness of watching someone I once loved become someone I don't recognize. And the worst recognition that maybe the person I loved was also a performance. And the performance ended the same way all performances end, when the audience stops being useful. That night I ate cereal in the correct bowl. The cereal was still the wrong brand. I'd fix that tomorrow.